And in one case, a deputy chief constable has said, when did we last use a blue and white car? I went, 1982. He went, I don't have a problem. I don't know how many people would have been caught by one of these over the years.
Oh, that's
because this is the old blow-in-the-bag breath kit, the original the original Hayat cuffs for highway code, which would have cost you sixpence.
Sixpence.
And when you look at the graphics and things in it, you realise how basic the highway code used to be. Oh, this has the old is on it.
Limb services, M6. You never know what you find when you get here. So I have found, this takes me right the way back. This is 60s, isn't it? Can I ask who you are?
Paul.
Paul, okay. So what's the background to this?
Well, this is a 1960s Durham Panda.
Right.
Because the Hillman Imp, they bought 600 of them. Home Office bought 600 for different forces.
Right.
Which is why they're a slightly different blue to the Bermuda blue that the Moggies and the Ford Angulars and things were.
No, I remember the Angulars.
They were more a greeny blue.
Right.
But of course, originally they were black and white, hence the Panda. But then they realised, of course, in the dark, you can't see black. So it just looked like it was a set of white doors that were sitting at the side of a road.
Right.
So they changed it to the blue was the whole idea. And it was Lancashire Police who came up first with the use of the Panda.
Right.
So the nearest place to where we are at Lymm that had a Hillman Imp was Fleetwood.
Oh, wow, okay. So
before the days of them being Lancashire Police, they were Fleetwood's own, and they used to share it with the Coast Guard. So it only had one seat in it, and that was the driver's seat, because the rest had ropes and life belts and life rings and road signs and cones. So it was only ever one seat.
So now they use big Range Rovers with all sorts of kit in it. Now you've got stuff in the back.
Because we were talking about the health and safety brigade, and of course
you've got seatbelts.
This has no seatbelts because it was the year before they were invented, and of course it's therefore exempt because there's nowhere to fit them.
Right.
There's nowhere strong enough as a fixing point.
Just on a personal note, driving this, do you feel?
I just feel rather careful, mainly because of course your modern car now, the steering column would collapse. This wouldn't. It'll go straight through your chest. It's a metal pole that will go straight through your chest. And the fuel tank is right under the windscreen. Do you see a fuel issue here and health and safety issue?
And the police drove around in these.
Yeah. But they had 600, but now we've got a group of owners.
So where are you based?
I live in Manchester.
Okay.
So I'm just on my way back, and I've just stopped here to get me dinner on the way back.
Right.
Before going putting it back to bed. But we have a group of about 200 owners who around the country have police, fire and ambulance.
Okay.
The oldest we've got is a 1938 Wolseley, which is up in Preston, is up near Chorley.
So this would be the old bell ones rather
it's
than
the Winkworth
siren
bell,
ones.
Yeah, Winkworth bell. Oh, this has the old is on it, which of course they didn't originally have. It was the end of the 60s when they finally gave them.
Okay.
But the owners go around, obviously, schools and events and things. We do a lot of the open days for the fire service.
What do the kids, youngsters today, they have no idea what this is.
You know, the daft thing is they all come up and go, Nino. And it's like, well, they haven't used a Nino for 20 years. It's been the American whaler and whelp sound. Yet they still seem to have been taught. I get everything from heartbeat. If I'd had a fiver for every heartbeat I've had, I'd have bought another fleet. Or you'll get the kids who will say Postman Pat because it's very light PC Selby's Postman Pat car.
Yes.
So I'd love to know if the guy who designed it based it on an Imp because it's got quite a high.
Well, it's a classic kids drawing, isn't it? So it's the simplest drawing you can have.
Yeah. But we do a lot of dementia now. 2 years ago, one of the first ones I did, all they said was he's 89-year-old, he's 2 weeks off his 90th birthday. He's an ex-policeman and he'd virtually lost his entire ability to speak because of the dementia. Yeah. It was just the odd word.
Yeah.
And when I got there, they wheeled him out, and as soon as I saw his beard, I thought, I know you.
Yeah?
And it turned out to be Sir James Anderton, the ex-chief of Greater Manchester Police.
I remember Sir James Anderton.
And his beard just gave it away straight away.
Wow.
And, it started with me giving him a traffic hat, a white traffic hat, and he pushed it straight back at me because he was never in traffic, so they won't even touch them. It's like a holy grail sort of thing. Yeah. But then I gave him a cap that had Salford City Police. Now, Jim originally joined Manchester City when it was just the city centre, before the 1974 boundary change.
Yes, yeah.
And he's rubbing the word Salford, and he said Salford, and the nurse jumped in and said, well, you know where Salford is. And he looked a bit puzzled, and he named like a couple of places, then said Wigan, and I thought, that's not right.
Yeah.
I got home and looked his bio up. He was born Wigan.
Oh,
he was rubbing the word Salford as much to say, well, why isn't it saying Wigan Borough, which is what it would have said. So his brain hadn't gone, but sadly he passed away 5 weeks after they got COVID in the home he was in.
Oh, yeah.
So his daughter asked us when I did the funeral, because the last photo she has of me sitting in this.
Oh.
So one of our lads who's in St Asaph in North Wales has one of the last 20 GMP Capris, the 2.8 specials.
That's the original Capri.
And his was the most memorable because the registration was D444, because they were all consecutive numbers.
Yeah.
And his daughter said, well, what's the significance at the funeral? I went, your dad bought it. He would have been the chief who signed the order to purchase it. So it's nice when you can do that, but the memories that you get, I mean, I had a gentleman, we were talking about the boundary in 1974. He was in Stockport.
Yeah.
So he went from being a Cheshire policeman overnight to being Greater Manchester.
Yes.
Because they moved boundaries. He said, I didn't want to join GMP. So they moved him to Northwich. And he couldn't tell me what he'd had for lunch 2 hours before, but he reeled off the registration number of the Vauxhall Viva Panda he drove. Yeah. And was no thinking, just straight there.
Yeah. The same with me, I can reel off registration number. My very first car was a Mini PCM 866. It's in there.
PGP 109V Cortina Mark IV. Why? How?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no
But
logic.
it's lucky that we've got guys that have got some of the most familiar, like the old P5 Rover 3500.
Yeah.
You know, how many episodes of the Sweeney did you see with one of those rattling around?
Yeah.
The Sweeney car is still out, NHK, the bronze Consul, Ford Consul.
Yeah.
But we've got...
Well, I had a classic taxi ride in one of them. I know it's a long story. I'm not going to bore everyone, but I was serving in the forces. I was Fleet Air Arm helicopter pilot, and I was on the way back down on active duty, and my car broke down in Bristol, and I had to get back. And I rang up a taxi firm which said long distance, no object. And I was serving in Culdrose at the time, which is Cornwall. And I rang up and said, do you
can't get much further south,
this was 1972, 73, before the M5 went past Bristol. And I said, do you really do long distance? And he said, why, what do you mean? I said, I want to go down to Cornwall. And he slammed the phone down. I rang him back. I said, yeah, no, seriously, I got my ID card. He goes, all right, I'll come out. And he came out and he goes, okay, you got money. So I showed him and he goes, okay. And I jumped in and he drove me all the way down to Cornwall. Longest taxi ride I've ever had. Stopped off at a couple of vans on the way for a cup of tea. And a memorable taxi ride.
I've been trying to explain to people how I used to go to Bicester to visit my gran before the days of the motorway.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, you had to go to Birmingham, then down through Banbury, past the Cross. And if you went on National Express, as it was in the early days, we used to stop at farms and deliver post. It took you hours to get to the thing, honestly, to get to Bicester. It was just ridiculous.
Well,
Before it even
was
had
down
a shopping
the old
village.
A38, was go through Taunton and all sorts of places. Yeah, there was a long journey.
But no, I think we've got some classics among the stuff. I mean, we've got a 71-year-old now Green Goddess.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And it's a 4.2, which there's only about 6 now in existence. And I think it's the only one that's actually on the road out of all the ones that are still in existence. But behind it, he has the old, like the pump.
Yeah. But you mentioned Green Goddess to the youngsters.
Yeah.
No idea.
Haven't got a clue. Haven't got the foggiest. But no, we've got some classics. And as for the pandas, Angular, Austin 1100, Moggy Minor, Hillman Imp. So we've got.
I had a Mark
got
1 Cortina, fabulous. And this was only about 30 years ago now. And the thing I noticed most about it, every time you pulled into a garage to fill up with petrol, people would come up to you, just talk. And nowadays they don't.
I got the clutch done on this last year, and Andy, the lad who did the clutch, is only late 30s, but was trained by a guy who's had an Imp garage since the 60s, you know. And we went out on a test drive, and I sat in the passenger seat. We get back, he went, does it often do that? And I'm thinking, is there a knocking sound? And he went, I went, what? He went, people taking photographs. I went, oh, you get used to that. That doesn't bother me in the slightest now.
Yeah. That's all gone with modern cars, but in the old days, if you saw one similar, you'd wave.
Yeah.
Sort of 30, 40 years ago.
Yesterday was driving through Warrington, and there was a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow coming the other way. We both flashed our red lights and we both waved. It's like the old AA thing, isn't it? Another member.
Yeah.
You know, but the guys we've got are great, and it's really worked with the dementia thing, certainly.
Yeah,
for bringing back memories.
Up in there. Yeah, because there's a lot still in there. With,
and they don't, but they're not bothered what model it is. It's a blue and white car, so it has to be a panda car.
Just fires it up, police on the top, and that's it.
And I mean, the only time I ever get stopped is by Bobby saying, "Can I have a photograph?"
I was going to say, because Jonas, the cameraman, he asked the question. Obviously, you're not going to get confused with the policeman.
Legally, it should be covered under the Road Traffic Act.
As cars get newer, there must be a point at which you're bordering on to impersonating a police officer. The daft part is, with GMP and Cheshire, I do the majority of their open days and things. Right. And in one case, a deputy chief constable has said, when did we last use a blue and white car? I went, 1982. He went, I don't have a problem. If it had yellow and blue squares down the side, and we went out for a coffee to Barton Airport near Manchester. Yeah. And in the 4 miles, he says, I've just watched 3 people put their seatbelt on. He says, so... They see you as a police car.
If it aids their memory to put the seatbelt on or take their right foot off the accelerator, I'm all for it. And in fact, even Anton Sullivan, who is the inspector that does the Channel 5 series from Cheshire. Okay. Again, I've done interviews with Anton on here. Yeah. And I think his mum owned one, or his grandma owned one in Sierra Leone. You know, it's just potty, the people who come up to you with stories about where they had one or what they did in it. Like, you know, we used to sit on the parcel shelf to go on holiday. Well, that'll be nice and warm because you're right on top of the engine. So where are you heading off next? After you're heading home now? I'm going to go and put it back to bed because I've got another 3 events this week because it's it's Manchester's Hate Crime Week. Okay. So we normally take it out, and it's I cheat slightly in that the graphic that goes on is just a magnetic that goes on the front that has the crest, the national LGBT crest. Okay. Which the police support is on the front. So but no, all the bits in here are as was. So the Pi radio. I mean, I've got a couple of things of my dad's in here for the simple fact, obviously, he was he drove. He was a bobby. So let me grab these and I'll show you. So there's his original 1964 stick with a couple of dints and marks on it. Yeah, I'll hand that back. I'm dangerous with that. People always say, well, you know, it would have really hurt. It's like, well, it was intended to hit you behind the knee. It was to stop you running. It would take you down from running is the idea of it. Yeah. It also, the only other thing of his in here are the original Hayat cuffs. Now, Hayat still make the current ones, the new ones. Right. And you're not going to believe that it's still the same key. I can open a brand new pair with that key. There's the current key. There's the original key. Good grief. So there's the original. There's the new one. It's just longer. But I can open that with these. I have to say, it seems strange to me, all the American films where someone gets a hair clip and just flips them open. They're open in 2 seconds. And you think, well, surely it's a bit more secure than that. And apparently not then. Well, you never know. And of course, I don't know how many people would have been caught by one of these over the years. Oh, that's because this is the old blow-in-the-bag breath kit. So, again, health and safety. Stop me when you hear an issue. You're going to remove a glass tube. You're going to put it in the little gadget on the side, the little hole that's there on the side. You put that in to break both ends off so that you're able to blow into it. That then goes in the top of the bag and the red on top of that to blow into. If the crystals changed colour and went green, obviously there was alcohol present. And if you went over that second yellow line, you were then over. And you'd have been taken in. But you can imagine saying to health and safety, oh no, I'm going to stand at the side of the road and break 2 ends off a glass tube. I can just hear them now yelling. But again, Dragar, who made these, still make the new ones. They make the new electronic ones.
Because I've got one in the car as well. You need them if you drive in France now.
But they also make all the sort of vital signs monitors for the hospitals and things as well. They're into all those sort of instruments. Yeah. Is their big thing. Of course, if you watched any of the old films from back in the day, those are the radio.
The walkie-talkies.
You would normally see that one here in the tunic.
Yeah.
Because that was the receiver, that's the sender. There were two separate halves. They weren't a combined unit.
Right, so you... Yeah.
So the amount of bobbies, apparently, who took one half and forgot the other half, and then suddenly realised they hadn't got it.
You could hear us.
Again, you were talking the end of the 60s before Pi moved up to one unit.
Yeah.
And it was like twice the size.
Yeah.
And had the strange name that it was called a pocket phone. The last place you could have got it was in your pocket. It was that big. And then the dreaded thing he didn't want to see was one of these.
No, that's
This is the ticket book.
Ticketing book.
So there's some of the old produce your documents that you had 5 days to go and drop off your stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, they were all carboned, self-carboned. And the amount of bobbies who've said to me, you know, you only forgot to put the cardboard in once. And then realised you'd written the entire book on the first ticket. That was if you had no road tax. You would have been without that. And then the other one was the fixed penalties. So your first fixed penalties looked like one of those.
Whoa.
So that'd have been your first fixed penalty. Now, the police use something to this day called roadcraft it's like their own highway code.
Oh, yeah.
But that was the 1961, which would have cost you 3 shillings and sixpence, so 17.5p, isn't it? Yeah, 17.5p.
Yeah.
And that was the 1964 highway code, which would have cost you sixpence.
Sixpence.
And when you look at the graphics and things in it, you realise how basic the highway code used to be.
And hand signals.
Yeah. And it even had a letter from the Minister of Transport in the beginning of it, saying, you know, thank you for buying this highway code. Please read it and know what you're doing. And of course, the last, before they moved to digital, that was the last, if you'd got a ticket, which then had all the codes for what offence you'd committed, which you then had to put in. And of course, it may have then been dispensed to you in one of those glorious yellow envelopes.
Yeah, stick on the wind.
Yeah, which you never want to come back to suddenly seeing. So that's...
Well, I'm going to have to call it short because we've got an awful lot of filming to do, but it's been absolutely fascinating meeting you. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
And
and look out for our lot at various points on the road because we're all over the place.
Yeah, we will see you around.
We normally have one in the summer at Manchester Airport, which we've done now for 3 years as a services day.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for you. Thanks a lot.
See you later.